Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to CBM Calling on this Wednesday, April the 8th. In the past couple of weeks, CBM Calling has brought you to Lebanon, Germany, the Philippines, Guatemala, Bolivia, and Thailand. Today, we're privileged to be joined by CBM's India team leader, Suraj Komaravalli, from his home in Hyderabad, India. Hi, Suraj, how are you?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you. How about you?
We're doing well. It's your evening, it's our morning in Canada. And I'm sure those who are viewing in Europe or Africa, that'll be their afternoon. So first off, Suraj, we are all concerned about our field staff worldwide. So I want to ask, how are you, your family, and also how's CP and his family doing?
Yeah, I greet you all in the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Acknowledge His grace always is upon us. And coming to your question, John, thank you for your concern. Fortunately, and by God's grace, my family and CP's family are doing well. We're keeping good health. We're able to stay together with our families, interact. We're having family prayers together with a full family number. I know CP's daughter is in Canada, but still we are able to knit well, interact, and all these things are working well for us. Thank you.
That's good to hear that everyone is doing well. And for those of us in Canada, we hear news about India, but that's mostly through popular media. So we would really like to know about what's happening in India in this virus situation. I know that the CBM prayer line, you're featured on it, and you have given a little bit of summary. So maybe you can talk about what's happening with the lockdown and how's that affecting people in India.
Okay. The country went into an official lockdown from March 22nd to April 14th. My state and CP state started a bit early from the 12th of March. So in other words, we're in self-isolation from that particular period of time. The current status of the situation is we have 5,194 positives, 165 deaths. The worry for us, we only have around 40,000 ventilators and almost 30,000 have already been used or being used by the patients.
Wow.
So this is a major crisis for us. In addition to that, and what I have mentioned in the prayer request is all of this was more or less like a sudden decision that came into the country. And the worst affected were the poor migrant daily wage workers. And they were actually put in a great shock because there was no way for them to travel back to their villages. All these companies have closed, there was no work for them, and the only way of getting back to their village was by walking. So they had to carry their little children, carry their luggage with very little food with them. And some were lucky to get some transport, and the others really had to walk. And our partner, I need to mention the Soura Baptists, they have migrant workers almost all around the country. Hyderabad, Vizag, Vishakhapatnam, and here and there, Chennai. It took 7 days for them to walk from my place back to their villages. And without really any transport mode that was available. So these are certain crises that they were facing, the migrant workers. In addition to that, the local daily wage workers of our other partners also are affected in the same way. So the country has seen this a kind of a huge number in millions of people migrating from one place to the other. I mean, the migrant workers moving from one place to the other just because of this lockdown situation.
Yeah, so that's a really mind-boggling reality that I think in North America we would not understand. Like we even have people who might be lower wage or blue collar workers, but normally we will work within the city or around that area. So you're saying that people who are migrant workers, they might have to travel across India to get back to their home.
The main reason why they want to go back home is because there's no food if they remain in that other state where they're working. So by going home, they're assured to have a place to live. It may be a hut or whatever it is, and some food grain that is available in the farm. So that's the only reassurance that they have. And sometimes because they live in that particular, they're officially registered in that particular state, they're also having access to some grain that the government provides to them. So that's the main reason that they want to take all this risk and go back to their places and get some food to eat.
Wow, so that's really a different reality and really harsh reality for us to understand. Thanks for letting us know. So it would take a little pause here because there are a few friends online. And Suraj, you know your friends and colleagues Dennis Sherman and Randy Stanton are saying hi. And also Cheryl Buchanan has said that when she woke up this morning, she was praying for you and others she knew in India. So thanks very much, Cheryl.
Thank you, all of you. Yeah.
So for now, let's continue a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about how the lockdown has affected our partners in India, Suraj?
Yes, the lockdown, first of all, has affected our partners in the context of they had to suspend all services because these communities are differently built compared to the city communities. They only identify themselves when they come together. So that is very strong in the village context in India and in the tribal context. So that communication, that fellowship has been affected because of this lockdown. Secondly, most of them are still in the oral tradition. They need to have a one-to-one of a kind of a direct pastor to congregation kind of relationship to have spiritual enrichments and also that reflects in their witness. These have been affected, but they understand that in spite of all these things, we could continue to worship in spirit and truth. And that's something that they're trying to work out. The second part is, like I mentioned, our partners have their own migrant, they have their own people who are migrant workers in other parts of the countries. The Soura Baptist leadership continue to receive calls from this group saying, can you help us to come out of our situation from that state and this state? In spite of all their efforts, they are really struggling to actually bring them over to their villages. The police, the collectors, and others say that you can't move till April 15th. Till recently, the contractors under whom they were working were not really concerned about them, but because the government took a serious action that they intervened into the migrant workers' realities, that now the contract workers are helping them to a certain extent. The third area where our partners have been affected is our projects, the daily running projects. The activities had to be kept at hold, respecting the government's conditions. But it's not a stop. The partners are rescheduling these activities to a later stage, and that all depends on when the lockdown is going to be lifted. They say that it's going to be extended for another 2 weeks. And again, when the government will give permissions to agencies, organizations to be involved in the community, these matter a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. I know that I have a number of questions, but before I ask mine, I just want to reach those who are watching live right now. If you have any questions, you are also free to type it in, and then I'll see the questions and ask Suraj to address them. Now, Suraj, there's one particular group, which are the Soura Christians, and you've told me this before, and I would like you to share with everyone. And just, again, the difference in reality. You were saying that the Soura people in Odisha, they don't even have soap to wash their hands. So the whole thing about washing your hands as much as you can, it's not something that they could do, right?
You're very true, John. Most of them are way below poverty level, according to the Indian rules. In general, usage of soap is not a daily event for them, but they're able to survive with whatever facilities they have. But because of this COVID-19, the instructions are given that use soap all the time. And now, when they are really struggling to buy food or get access to food on one hand, how they can go and buy a soap. This is something that is turning out to be a great challenge for the Soura Christians. And let me remind ourselves that the Soura community and the church has 960 plus churches, and the population as per the 2011 census is around 3 million plus. Today the Soura leadership says that they are 4.5 million of Soura community, and out of that at least 60% of them are Christians. So if we're talking about such a huge number, and the majority of the people are below poverty line, and this is turning out to be a major challenge for the Souras. In other words, on the other hand, they also have a big issue because most of these community people only speak their native dialect, and they don't understand the language Odia, which is spoken in that area. So they really do not know what is this coronavirus and what does it do and what does it mean. They only think that the police are beating them if they're coming out. So that is the kind of awareness that they have.
Wow, that's thanks for sharing. That's just I think completely blows my mind to think about it. You know, you have 960 churches, which would be almost equivalent to the number of Canadian Baptist churches we have across Canada, and then you are talking about millions of people, and they don't even have the basic means to wash hands. They don't have the soap, and they don't understand the language. But thankfully, you've explained that the authorities are reaching out to our partner, the Soura Baptists, to help disseminate this information, and maybe even the Soura Baptists want to do a project to help with getting more soap for the people, right?
Yes, John. Fortunately, the government has realized the problem that is existing, and they came to know that they are unable to communicate to the Soura people. So they have invited the Soura leadership, which we call the collector, who is the big boss of the whole district, along with the police personnel. They sat with the Soura leadership and requested the Soura leadership to assist them in creating this awareness among the Soura community, which never the authorities have asked the Soura people to do this. So the Soura community take it as a privilege and God-led reality, and they had to submit a plan to the government to say that this is what we are going to do. In addition to that, they also have the major challenge of looking into the needs of these poor people at this time, because most of them are daily wage workers and it is very difficult for them to earn a living. So in this context, how are they going to address these realities? So they're planning to bring out a relief program, and because of the sensitivity of that particular area that they live in, they have to take prior permission from the government to initiate any relief program. So I spoke to the leadership today, and they said that they're still in that process. As soon as this is done, they're going to initiate, and they would request our prayers in this regard.
Thank you for sharing. I know that for Canadians, you know, we're struggling with some shortages of this kind of medical supply as well. But mostly, as an average Canadian, I go out and say, "Oh, we don't have any more alcohol-based sanitizers." But in terms of soap, washing hands, I think we just take it for granted that everybody's had these, and we almost have unlimited supply. And it's hard to think that there are millions of people who don't even have any soap. And I think, you know, if our partner really will be able to get the permission from the Indian government to do something, maybe that's something that Canadian Baptists, we can get in on the action as well to help supply this much needed soap for the people in Odisha. So, and there are a number of additional people online now. So we say hi to Frank Quinta. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Frank. And then Terry Smith, Andros, Brenda Hulk, Patty Natural, our colleagues. Thanks for being online. And Suraj, you want to talk a little bit about, are there other partners other than the Souras who are starting to do some relief work around this coronavirus situation?
Yes, the Oriya Baptists, which we call the UBCA, I spoke to them. They're also planning on a relief program, but they're just trying to work out things. They're still in their initial period, but we have some good news from ECM in Corada, which is close to Kakinada. last week they did a food packet distribution to the poor people around the church. So 110 families were given food supplements, and they want to continue this program, and they are seeking prayers in this regard. As I have explained to you, all these people, I would say that all the beneficiaries of our partners, I would say literally 99% of them come from the daily wage workers now who have no jobs, nothing to earn. So it is in this context that ECM is involved. And in Nagaland, Alampang Baptist Church, interestingly, are preparing sanitizers. They are stitching face masks. The community, the church itself is doing that. And they're providing food supplements to the poor in Mokokchung area. And my friend, Reverend Thamso, the pastor, had a truckload of rice bags in that, taking it out to be distributed to these poor people. So we're looking forward to some interesting stories and who are really, the church is able to live in the society in this regard.
Well, thank you very much. And it's really encouraging to hear that the Christian church is getting involved in helping the most vulnerable and most needed, and that we're not just staying at home and being afraid, but they are going out to help those neighbors around them. That's great. Now we want to get into the prayer items a little bit. And today we want to do it a little bit different. Of course, I'm going to end by asking for prayer items for yourself, for CP, and the partners. But in the prayer line that you have written, it's a beautiful prayer that you have, and thank you for that. There are a couple of special items that I want to highlight and ask you because, well, you're a pastor and you're a theologian, Suraj. So you talk about in all the midst of this coronavirus situation, we need to thank God for creation healing. So that's the first thing I would like you to unpack a little bit. What do we thank God for? Are there things that we could thank God for in the midst of the COVID-19 situation?
Oh, for sure. I mean, when Yahweh, God has entrusted us to be stewards of creation and take care of the whole thing, I would say that I could generally speak that many of us have taken it for granted, to the extent that we have more or less dominated things and did not give space to the other who also have the right to have the same privilege. And that is what this season had given me a great time of contemplation to see where we are from a spiritual point of view. And then I realized that there indeed is spiritual healing. I see that in the form of an ecological environment. Well, India is considered to be one of the most polluted countries. We are having stories now from people in Punjab, the state, are able to see the white Himalayan mountains from Jalandhar, one of their states, which was never a story. Mm-hmm. And then the Ganges is considered the holiest river in India, but the most dirtiest river in India. Today, you are seeing, and there are reports that this river is healing. The water is becoming clearer. And to my surprise, near my apartments, I have never seen these birds or heard their sounds. And it is so sweet to hear the birds playing around and that. And now we are getting more stories of animals coming onto the road. And then all these things reflected to me that how much have we taken of them? How much we have not respected them. And these are certain things that cause concern to me.
Sure, and thank you for that wonderful perspective in terms of creation healing. And certainly it's worth our noting that, it's when the human activity has slowed down, like we're all at home, we couldn't go out, then all creation can come out and actually enjoy this earth that God had created. But that just reflects that when we're going about busy about our own business, that negative effect that's having on the rest of creation, perhaps we're just not aware of until now. That's a wonderful theological reflection, Suraj. and certainly something we should thank God for. Now, you've also mentioned that there are things that we need to reflect upon. So positively, we need to reflect upon what we value. And then you also talk about negatively, we should ask God to prune us of certain things that perhaps we should consider being pruned away from. So can you talk a little bit about that, what we value and what we should prune?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking from my perspective, sure. I mean, we continue to mention our commitments and we ask for prayers for our commitments. But this for me was a testing time to see how much I value my commitments. It's not that I was astray, but it gives me an opportunity to reiterate and look back to my commitments and the element of faith, which is the driving force for us as Christians in this world, and especially as theologians and those involved in the Christian work. In testing times, I feel that this, it's not going down, but it's being strengthened. And this is what we need to be looking at. And I really value, if not for faith, I don't think I would have seen this in a positive sense. I would be living in fear and uncertainty and all that. But now, because of faith, I look at it as I have something to do. The faith moves. Even if you look at it from a biblical perspective, Jesus always talks about faith in the move. You move, you will be healed. You move, the sea has been split into two. So this is something that I understand it is important to value faith. Oh, family, we take it for granted all the time. I say this in the positive sense. Oh, it's so good to be connected once again with the family. Everybody's over here. We realize the value of fellowship. Most of the time we take it for granted. And the element of love and compassion that we always, or most of the time, we ignore. And in addition to that, I also looked at there are many things that we need to prune in our life. And one of those strong things is that the false insecurities that we have in India. The rich and the middle class believe in the worldly securities. They believe I invest in this, I do this, and I do that. But today, what I thought or what we think about security is no longer a security. That is the last position that is given to that. And this really recounts to see that where we stand in the sight of the Lord. So we can't take things for granted. You can't be casual. And you can't be, you can't bring your eye into this. There's no place for ego or arrogance or anything for that. So this is something that I was thinking about in my contemplation, and to see that from a wider Christian perspective from the Indian church, these are areas where we have fallen short, and this is what we need to value in our lives. Thank you, John.
That's great. So what are the things that you think we should prune away from?
You always have power struggle. Hierarchy is always there. And these areas are, which has more or less caused factions, schisms in the churches in India. And that really has to be gone at this stage. I mean, if you're really looking at this from a spiritual perspective, to say that you don't direct the world, but rather the Lord looks at your realities. You make the mistakes, and this is what is your reality. I don't want to really theologize it is our mistake at this sense, but this is a consequence of what we have been leading to see where we are standing. But it says that this is not the end, but there is a time for us to reflect and get ourselves right in the sight of the Lord. I believe that a Christian has to go on in an everyday basis of repenting from their situations. If we can't speak of a life of repentance, I really can't speak a life of forgiveness.
I think that's very apt and down to earth, especially these days where we're always just staying at home, and maybe we mixed up the days of the week and we don't know what hour of the day it is. But we should still be disciplined and really think about ways that we can do things for God and reach out to friends and even those across the sea, right? So for everyone, if you're interested, you can read Suraj's prayer line. It is posted on our website, cbmin.org, cbmin.org, and you will also find Facebook. You can go to our Facebook Canadian Baptist Ministries page to also see that. Now, before we forget, we want to pray for you and others on the line also. For example, Lisa Loans from Atlantic Baptist Women says hi and want to pray for you and pray for CBM. We certainly thanks for that. But Suraj, what can we pray for you and CP and our partners?
Yes, thank you. Please pray for safety of our family, CP, and the partners. And we, especially for God's healing hand at this time during this crisis. We're seeking for a redemption out of this situation. And then we also seek special prayers for the medical staff who are actually helping the country at this time and other personnel. We also pray for the support that our partners need to be going on with the relief programs. And we request for prayers for the migrant workers, especially as they are unsure of their work after this lockdown period. And we also pray for many youngsters in our churches that most of them who recently got a contract to work, all those contracts have been canceled. So they really are going through a difficult time. So realities like this. So kindly remember these in your prayers, please.
Thank you very much, Suraj. And it's so great to speak to you. And certainly hope that you will stay safe and healthy. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to CBM Calling. Tomorrow at 2:30 in the afternoon, Eastern Daylight Time, Adrian Gardner will be chatting with Bill and Janice Dick, our global field staff in Bolivia. So see you all then. Bye.